One.
Stay tuned for the next episode in Cobra Convergence.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of Cobra Convergence 7. This will mark the 5th year that I've been part of this amazing fan for fan event. And like HCC 78 has said, this initially started with him, Timmer from Half the Battle, and Forum BX257. So I was one of the initial additions that came on after Cobra Convergence 1 and 2. I think me, Peg Warmers, G.I. Joeberg, we all joined in as that next wave. And it's nice to see so many wonderful additions. Last year, we had the foresight of covering Transformers in G.I. Joe in comics. So our good friends Chris Pierce from Comic Tropes was kind enough to join. And ironically, that's what's going on. We're getting all these news about, especially after Transformers Rise of the Beasts, that G.I. Joe is coming into the shared universe. As well on the comic side, with the acquisition of Image Comics for G.I. Joe and Transformers, they're going into the Energon universe. Now, initially, for this episode, I had planned another collaboration with my good friends, Simple Tricks and Nonsense. We actually filmed everything, and unfortunately, at the last minute, there were certain points where the audio just cut in and out, and it wasn't really good. So we shot like 20 minutes worth of stuff, and then during the editing, it just didn't fizzle out. And if you guys know, Simple Tricks and Nonsense are the best husband and wife cosplay team, and for them to get into their costumes and then setting up and doing another reshoot when they had PowerCon coming up on August 11th as well. So it was just a kind of like pressing for time, and that's okay. So this is going to be a wonderful episode where we're going to look at, since I'm known in the community mostly for covering the IDW run and hopefully the Image run going forward, I have most of the Marvel and almost all the IDW run as well. So I went through my crazy ass collection and pulled several Cobra only issues. And what I mean by that, let's set the ground rules for this. So for example, hold on. So for an example, this would not count. Now this is my from Larry Hama to me directly. It says to Shabir from Larry Hama. This has mostly all Cobra personnel, but it has Snake Eyes in it, or Sean Collins, because the real Snake Eyes was dead. So this would not count. It has to be Cobra only covers. Some of them are going to be familiar faces, and some of them are going to be ones you're going to discover. So this is going to be kind of fun. And I know, like, I have one of the lowest viewers because people think that because of my skin and my name that I don't know shit. So I don't have that many people watching. I don't expect many people do, even though my dad served in Vietnam and I was in Homeland Security and also liaison to the FBI. So they know more than me. So no one watches my shit, even though I've been doing this since 2015. So whatever. For shits and giggles, let's take a look at the iconic, wonderful Cobra covers in comics. And what I meant, I've had people that actually messaged me and said, what would you know about a real American hero? This is from certain Facebook groups, people that have written to me. So I have to deal with that bullshit. So just letting the fan base know, and I have to deal with Emily, who doesn't recognize the minority fan base. So all this time, I get treated like shit. No one watches my stuff. So fuck it. I'm just going to have fun. I'm going to share the covers that I like. And, you know, if you know more than me just because, you know, the base of the color of your skin, then I feel bad for you. Okay. Because that's not what being a G.I. Joe fan is all about. You know, so, and I actually protected this country while you sat on your couch and played with your dinghy. So keep that in mind when you write those comments to me, okay? Alrighty, so let's start off and have some fun. And I think these are going to be honorable mentions. This is from the story arc, the non-Larry Hama story arc of G.I. Joe, written by Paul Allure. One of the biggest surprises in 2020, 2019 that I think that goes below the radar. Basically, Cobra has taken over the world, and G.I. Joe is now a small cell that's underground. Like basically, they're freedom fighters, and they're using the same names that we all are familiar with, but the characters are completely different as far as their backstory and how they came to be. The opening sequence of this 10 issue story arc with Duke being assassinated by Major Blood at point blank definitely gets your attention. And I admit, when I recap this issue, the first, I guess, one or two issues were kind of like, you know, but once you got past that second issue, going all the way to issue 7, it is a hidden gem as far as, especially if you were a veteran and you've dealt with PTSD and you know, because Scarlett's character, I mean, I had to put down the book because a lot of the stuff that she was facing hit home, like, and it resonated with me on how she struggled with moving forward in life and then having to yet again pick up a gun and going back in for the greater good of humanity, not just herself. So there's something, and the losing Duke, who kind of helped her get out of the hole that she was in dealing with PTS. It's such a well-written story that I highly recommend the fan base to revisit again with open eyes, because initially so many people that were reading comics jumped off the bandwagon, and that's a big no-no. If they stuck with it, they would have been rewarded with an amazing story. So one cover I liked was from issue number 4 of that series. Basically, this is Cobra Commander, and I see a lot of the classified series kind of taking cues from this depiction of Cobra Commander. Where is he? Commander, is he here? Or back? I don't even know where my Cobra Commander went. Oh, fuck it. I can't find it. Anyway, if you look at your classified, I'll pull up a picture here. If you look at the classified of Cobra Commander and this version of Cobra Commander, you'll see a lot of similarities in that. So this one gets an honorable mention. G.I. Joe, the Paul Allure series, issue number 4, cover A or B? This one's cover B. And the next one, again, same series, is issue number 2. And this has Major Blood on it. So again, Major Blood started off the series literally on a bang by assassinating Duke at point, like execution style. And it just really catches like your attention, that it's so in your face and so real. So this is issue number 2, cover A of the Paul Allure G.I. Joe series. And then going up to issue number 10 with cover A, The Baroness and Cobra Troopers. I think this is a wonderful modern interpretation of the Baroness in this storyline. It fully captures how she is in this story versus the tight-cladded femme fatale that I mean, she's still all of that, but you know, again, it's more of a subdued version. And I think this is another excellent representation of her. The next one is going to be a yearbook number, I think this is yearbook number 2 or 3. So these are the IDW one-shots that were a big success, in my opinion, because you were getting the reprints of the yearbooks in that high gloss paper. So yearbook number 4. So this is a reprint of yearbook number 4. And I love the cover art because you see you have the Baroness on a his tank, and you have Cobra Commander version 2, and you also have the October Guard. So that kind of keeps a little bit of what one of my parameters was Cobra, mostly Cobra, no GI Joe whatsoever. But again, the big things when we recap the series is that you're able to enjoy them, and with that high gloss paper that these were printed on. And you know, and I'm a big fan of the newsprint, the old school versus modern comics. If you guys follow me, you know that. But the fact is, you could flip through these and enjoy them without the fear of devaluing or getting a crease or whatever on your vintage books. And I think the way the artwork, it's just being printed on this paper that really like kind of ups the ante a little bit. It's just a beautiful presentation. And again, I was sad when IDW lost the license because I know a lot of the people behind the scenes through the years that have worked so hard in keeping G.I. Joe alive. When G.I. Joe was dead in the water, not many of the people you guys were reading, or, you know, they moved on to Star Wars or some other shit. But for the few of us that stuck it out, even in the dark times, we were rewarded with things like this from IDW's team. And again, this cover is absolutely amazing. And because now that G.I. Joe is back with Image, because people forget that after the Marvel run ended with issue 155, Image and Devil's Due, defunct Devil's Due, picked up the license and was continuing with the story arc, but changing things altogether. So this cover we're going to take a look at is an Image cover, and I just think Destro looks absolutely amazing in this. And let me see, who was the cover art? Oh yeah, the back cover is done by J. Scott Campbell. I totally forgot about that. So to the people that don't know, J. Scott Campbell is equivalent to Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee. So he is the person to call when you want to get a variant cover. His ability to draw female characters mostly is absolutely phenomenal, and his covers are highly sought after in modern comics. But again, this is another reason why I picked out this issue, is because of J. Scott Campbell's back cover artwork as well as the cover art of Duke. Yeah, so covered by David Beck did the front cover, and back cover is J. Scott Campbell. I mean, that when I saw that during my setting up for this episode, I was like, yeah, this one definitely needs to be shown off. And that is wonderful. Look at that. The red Destro holding Hooded Cobra Commander's hood. I think this is a wonderful, wonderful home run. And a lot of people don't know about it. That's the thing. So that's why we're doing this. So, you know, you could find these probably back in the dollar bins or $5 bins in your LCS. And yes, we're in an age where you could sit behind and click on a button and have instant gratification. But when you follow my channel, I've always said that, your help when you go to these smaller comic shops, especially when you have children, it's an experience to pass down. I mean, and also you're helping your community, you're keeping your dollars in the community, you're helping a smaller business, and you're fun. And it's fun to just go to there. I'm not a bar guy. I don't drink alcohol. I don't, um, I enjoy going out and just what you call thrifting, is what the older folks say. So I call it my version of thrifting. You find gems like that when you go out, when you step out, get into your car and drive someplace. So keep that in mind. Again, these are going to be in no particular order. I don't have time to rate them. It's just cool to share them and, give a few insights about the issue itself. So maybe you'd be interested. Now, when G.I. Joe, the IDW run, issue 295 hit, the whole community suddenly, even modern comic community, are well aware of the artwork done by our good friend John Royal. And John, initially in 2015, a lot of people were writing him off as a J. Scott Campbell wannabe. I didn't see that then. And I would talk to John, and, he's such a humble and low-key guy. It didn't bother him. And he just kept on plugging away and doing what he does best. This cover that I'm about to show you was one of the reasons why, John Royal deserves the entire G.I. Joe fan base's support. And this is a special variant cover for issue number 280. You were only able to get this at a particular comic shop. I forget what was the name of it, and you had to order it. And I was lucky enough to get it. And also EGS gave us a custom label for it. So if you could see that, I've showcased this to many groups in Facebook, why, besides CGC, PGX and EGS are viable options. I particularly like EGS. Number one, they're local. The guy's shop is 2 towns over. He's a nice dude. And going up against a big corporation like CGC takes big cojones. But when this is on display, it is a complete work of art to the eye, from the label to the actual cover itself. It's a continuous kind of input for your eyes to take in. And the colors he uses, the fact that there's flames on the Cobra logo, and you put that with the actual cover itself, it is the next level stuff. And I know there's people that are CGC fanboys, and I'm not here to, deter anybody, but I would rather spend money on getting this one of a kind work versus something that's to the masses, So G.I. Joe issue number 280, the John Royal Baroness cover of Untold Tales. We're going to see more from this cover, this particular issue, different covers as well coming up. Okay, so the next one we're going to look at, I think, is the initial G.I. Joe Cobra Bible that we had back in the 80s. And that would be Order of Battle issue number 3, with all the Cobra bios. Again, these are the same type of information you'd find on back of your file card, and all written, mostly 95% at the time was written by Larry Hama himself. So to get it in print form, along with a depiction of the character, because you guys got to remember, things like the Mark Bellomo guide to G.I. Joe didn't exist at the time. So this was basically what we had to go back on in the 80s as fans, as kids. So I to this day, I still use this. I have digital versions of it. So in my videos, I always do use the digital versions, like screenshots and stuff, versus flipping it through and taking a picture of the actual issue. Number one, I don't want to further damage, because remember, these books are 40, 50 years old now, and paper naturally deteriorates. So the longer you have it exposed, that's why I'm a big supporter of getting your books graded. Now, keep this in mind when we look at our next book. And that would be the one-shot featuring all key Cobra issues. Again, another offering from IDW for the fans. There's at this point, they're knowing that the license is up for renewal, and there's a chance that Hasbro will not be renewing their license for IDW. But still, they were putting out these one-shot offerings as a thank you to the fans that stuck with G.I. Joe in the dark ages, the dark period, when there was no Hasbro releases of. Now, for the past 2 years, with the introduction of classifieds, we've seen so many people jumping on board, all these Facebook pages opening up. Where were they in 2015, 2014? It was like we were all in abandoned, and they all are experts. Everybody's an expert, so more power to you, more power to you. But this is a wonderful Cobra cover. And inside, instead of having to hunt down all those issues, you're rewarded with offerings like this, a reprint, verbatim, cover-to-cover reprint of issue number 55, 57, 76, and to 80. Again, in that high gloss paper. So this is a wonderful offering. We crapped all of these in previous episodes, but again, this is another cover. When you look at it and compare it to the Order of Battle, you could see like it's piggybacking off of that. And people kind of overlook that, but yep, that's. I think this is a wonderful cover, and definitely a book that I'm considering sending to be graded as well, just to have that. So special Cobra IDW one shot, and again, this is just to highlight one of the guidelines for this episode. So you would think that this would be issue number 155 and a half when G.I. Joe was announced that Larry Hama would continue on with the Marvel run in this upcoming A Real American Hero story arc, now under IDW's stewardship. Now, this one doesn't count because it has G.I. Joes on the bottom, but let's give an honorable mention to this one, because this one pretty much brought G.I. Joe out of the grave. Because all due respect to Devil's Due and Image, they weren't Larry Hama's. Even though he would write an issue here or there as a special guest writer, the fact of the matter is his Hamaverse was done in 1994. So it's kind of cool that when this was announced, that there would be continuation of it. And this coincided with the 25th anniversary type of stuff. So it's kind of cool. And that gets a special honorable mention. So the next one we're going to take a look at is G.I. Joe issue number 38. Now, you have to remember that Storm Shadow was a Cobra at this time in the Larry Hamaverse. So a Cobra on Cobra cover, and with that horrendous 80s yellow background. The fact that this book is going to be sent out for grading because yellow is one of the yellow, red, and white are three colors that is tough to clean and press. And now clean and press service is when the book is cleaned, obviously, and pressed to remove any blemishes on your comic. And 9 out of 10, it has a significant impact on the overall ending grade of your book when you submit it. So it's an option. Yes, you do have to pay a little bit extra, but in the long term, it's an excellent investment to make for your books before they go into the slab and locked away forever. So issue number 38, Destro versus Storm Shadow. The next book we're going to take a look at is another IDW run, issue number 227. Now, we have to remember that at the end of issue 155, Cobra Commander was in the process of brainwashing, bringing the Baroness, Storm Shadow, Billy, Destro back into the fold. They were working as separate entities, and he kind of used the brainwave scanner to his advantage to bring his troops all under one umbrella. And in this story arc, Destro and the Baroness are kind of like breaking free of that mind control they already have, but now, like, it's them versus G.I. Joe versus Cobra versus Revac. So you'll see that the machine Skynet type of new character that is kind of being added into the pot. So they're all Revanche is the name of that Skynet like bad guy. So this is an excellent cover representing that particular time in the IDW run of Raha. Speaking of which, our next book is going to be G.I. Joe issue number 149. Again, we're dealing with that whole story arc of the Cobras coming back under one layer with Cobra Commander. And this illustrates exactly what I was just saying, how Cobra Commander kind of manipulated everybody, brought them in, zapped them with the brainwave scanner, and got them in line with himself going forward. And then, boom, G.I. Joe ends. So that's why I liked the IDW picking up and going forward. Is a lot of the questions are starting to be answered. But this is essentially where it all began. And again, the added thing is like, even from issues like 130-ish to 155, the print run was starting to get really low, which is kind of was the flag, the white flag going up, starting to go up, I should say. A lot of us are in high school now. So, I mean, I was. So the interest of G.I. Joe from 80s, early 90s, a lot of that age group have moved on to girls and sports and everything else. So the writing was on the wall, but I think this issue is what kind of started to see that white flag go up. And that's a shame because look at this cover art. The Baroness is absolutely amazing. And you have Cobra Commander. I think this is version 6, the black, all in black Cobra Commander that I think the talking Cobra Commander, and then they created the black one. So I've always, besides the original version 1, 1.5, and 2, I've always said that that is the next best Cobra Commander as far as toys are concerned. But this cover, again, highly sought after. This, you're dealing with over 100, around $100, $150 for this particular book. Low print run. So, and it's a direct edition. If this was a newsstand, you're talking about over $200. But this is pretty damn close to that. Not that that matters. I don't collect for that reason. But just to let you guys know that this is, any of those end of the Marvel runs are highly sought after. And it's wise to pick up any of those from issue 130 to 155. If you find it, grab it. If you're able to find a newsstand, that's even better. So there's a lot of books that I picked up that had a nice direct edition score, but I found the newsstand and I picked that over the direct version to get graded just because it's a newsstand version. So issue number 149. Alrighty, so earlier we talked about John Royal. Now this is another John Royal variant cover for issue number 252. The way he draws the Baroness is absolutely amazing. So I definitely wanted to get this book graded because I love John's artwork. And the funny thing is I don't have issue 295, the one that everybody wanted and was sought after and kind of put John on the map. That was impossible to pick up. And even if the ones on eBay were going for over $100 for a raw copy, not even a graded one. So that's absolutely insane. But, again, wait, especially now when the prices in comics have dropped significantly from the 2021 record highs that everybody, because everybody was getting that government money and they were buying stuff left and right. Comics had a big spike back in 2021. Now that spike has kind of subdued a little bit, so you're able to pick up, I'm saying across the board on all comics. So if there's a key issue that you're looking at, now is definitely the time to buy. This is a buyer's market, not a seller's market. I know because I do sell some comics every now and then, just to as a way of donating to the non-kill shelter that lives down the street from me, as well as to put back in to my grading partners to help continue that, because we do unboxing episodes for both EGS and PGX. So every month we'll do a unboxing video featuring those two companies. So it's just kind of cool to go through books, talk about them, reminisce, because they're mostly all old school from the Gen X era. And it's just kind of cool to see everybody's feedback. Oh, I remember getting that book. I had to ride my bike. So it's kind of cool hearing everybody's stories. And that's what fandom is about, is just, shared experiences. And that's what I try to bring. But going back to this cover, John hit this one out of the park. I love that reddish rose type of tint on this cover. And PGX did a wonderful job with their clean and press service, because most of the books I send, I read them. They're readers, I read them, enjoy them. I mean, they're not just taken right off the shelf and sent to grading companies, because that's not the point in collecting comics. So I do read them, and they're able to get out any of the creases or what have you I may have put while engaging in reading the cover. But issue number 252 by John Royle, featuring Special Missions Baroness. Again, this is another great, and back in the day, we had another series for Special Missions that was allocated bi-monthly, but IDW kind of incorporated that within the Real American Hero story arc. So there would be the entire story arc, but then there will be a gap, and they'll fill it in with Untold Tales or Special Missions. This one is with the Baroness. Kind of, you get an idea of what she's really about. Like, she saves a delegate and their family because Major Blood is going rogue. Like, he's using all Cobra assets to plan this assassination, and Baroness is the good guy in this episode, and where she saves the delegate's life. And but of course there's a meaning. He's friendly to Cobra and buying Mars weapons and stuff. So she does it, a good thing, but she has her own motivations, as the Baroness should. So I like the story arc. Great cover. Check it out. And here's cover A of the same exact issue. I think I've covered all the covers I got for this one, because they all featured the Baroness, and I love the Baroness. And definitely check out Simple Tricks and Nonsenses, Rebecca's the Baroness cosplay. She does a wonderful job with it, excellently done. Fully captures the Baroness as far as the sophistication, the smarts, and the sexiness, all in a wonderful package. So definitely, if you can, I'll have the link below. Check out their Instagram page and their Facebook page as well, and YouTube channel as well, for all the latest. And they will be going to PowerCon, unveiling several new kind of things. We've seen Golden Girls on Rebecca's side, Shitara, and on John's side, he's doing a Mumra that's absolutely, and another character that is in the Masters in the Universe that you don't know about. It wasn't a filmation or anything like that, but it's just amazing what he's able to do. Like, you have to learn how to be woodworking, a little bit of fabricating, metal work, sewing, all of that stuff goes into cosplay. And that's what the video was going to be about, was doing a couple of skits and then them talking to the Gen Xer and what goes into making a cosplay, because I don't think people really know. And when you do, you appreciate it even that much more, how much work goes in for fandom. So that's why I wanted to show initially But hey, this is a good consolation video. Issue number 252 of Special Missions featuring the Baroness. And the next one, let's go back to the Marvel run. So this is the return of Cobra Commander when he gets Firefly, Billy, Zartan, Dr. Mindbender, Raptor, puts them in that freighter, seals it in the volcano, and blows it to smithereens. I mean, just the Cobra Commander nuts is reminiscent of like a Gaddafi or Saddam or Hitler or something, Mussolini, you know, those type of mentality that dictators go through, of where they don't have to answer to anybody. And he just put, like, he was the judge, jury, executioner in one swoop. And that's why this cover fully captures that time in the comic series of Cobra Commander just being a heart. I mean, his own son. That is fucked up shit. So I think this cover fully captures that and why it rightfully deserves in this presentation. Issue number 98 of G.I. Joe. Alrighty, so let's continue on. The next one is going to be the first appearance of Destro version 2. That's right, the Iron Grenadier's Destro. So this would be G.I. Joe issue number 87. And I like this in the sense that it's very simple. It's not like, you know, there's not too much stuff going on with this cover. I just think it gets straight to the point. It has a purpose, and that's to reintroduce Destro as the leader of the Iron Grenadiers. So G.I. Joe issue number 87. And with that, we're going to look at, now there's a lot of, you're going to see a lot of Destro and Baroness in covers and G.I. Joe. So here's another one, G.I. Joe issue number 259, cover A. And again, this is the whole story of the whole Dr. Venom return story arc. So Dr. Venom kind of subconsciously put himself in the brainwave scanner and downloaded himself into Dr. Mindbender. So as crazy as that sounds, and then Dr. Mindbender was creating a robot for Dr. Venom to re-download his psyche into that robot and take over everything. It's such a crazy ass story, but when you look back at it, it's kind of like hilarious and interesting at the same time. So this is part of that story arc, as well as this one. So again, G.I. Joe issue number 261. This is cover A as well. And again, we have a Baroness and Destro on the cover. And this is the beginning of that story arc that I just mentioned about. So I like the green. Sorry about that. Maya's excited out there. So I kind of like the green, the black, and then the red. All the colors in this cover, I think, are really well done. So this would be 261. Another all Cobra cover will be G.I. Joe issue number 84. We got the Red Ninjas and the Fred Cobra Commander there. This is post the Cobra Civil War, so Cobra has kind of, you know, all the parties have gone their own ways, and Cobra Commander, or Fred, is trying to, I guess, bring back what's left of Cobra into one cohesive unit. So again, with Zartan in the background and the Red Ninjas, kind of like foreshadowing his involvement in the the whole story arc of him involved in the Snake Eyes, the Hard Master's death. The next cover is going to be G.I. Joe issue number 49. Now, this is the first appearance in the creation of Serpentor. I think this is another one of those great story arcs, important story arcs, where it's kind of like different from what the Sunbow version versus the Larry Hama universe, as how it kind of feels like this was ridiculous to Larry Hama, and rightfully so. So he kind of like did this, I guess, where in the Sunbow series and corporate Hasbro kind of like wanted to push the issue, where he was kind of like being dragged to include this into the Real American Hero story arc. So G.I. Joe issue number 49 with Destro, Dr. Mindbender, and Serpentor. Alrighty, so the next cover is going to be, again, another Baroness G.I. Joe issue number 280. We talked about this earlier with the John Royal cover. I told you I basically got every version of that issue because they all featured everyone's favorite hotness, the Baroness. So this one's a little bit more subdued, but again, it just kind of has the Baroness with this royal type of majestic cape that she's wearing, a castle in the background, kind of like her backstory, so to speak, as being aristocratic and so to speak, and then becoming a political, involved in politics to such an extreme that she becomes an extremist. So I like this cover as well. So another all Cobra cover is G.I. Joe issue number 265. Now this is a nice cover because it goes with issue number 264. So we have the Joe team, and then in the very next issue would be the entire Cobras, and we have Cobra Commander on his tank, Storm Shadow. I mean, this is going back because remember, Storm Shadow is a Joe at this point, but still, nonetheless, they're kind of paying homage to the OG, the original, with the Baroness is there. There's a big Cobra, a Fang Copter, a Rattler, a Trouble Bubble. Like this is like nice vintage 1984 type of stuff, and I think that's kind of cool with this offering in 2019 this came out. So I think this was really well done, and again, a white background. So white backgrounds are notorious for getting graded. So I don't know if I'm going to send this one out to grading because there's really nothing significant. And this is, again, dealing with the Dr. Venom story arc. So kind of a nice throwback. So G.I. Joe issue number 254 is a special missions. It's kind of piggybacking off of that earlier one where I showed the Iron Grenadiers Destro. So we have Destro in his version 1 riding his Iron Grenadiers chariot, so to speak. So I think this is a nice modern throwback to that issue. And that's what the cool thing about the IDW run is, that oftentimes I would have to go back into the Marvel run to do research, or I would watch 4MBX257's video, or our good friend HC788 when they covered the Marvel run, and I would kind of like read it, watch the video, and then I would do my recap for the current IDW run, and kind of like bridge the gap for G.I. Joe fans. So G.I. Joe issue number 254. So the next cover we're going to take a look at is G.I. Joe issue number 42. Now remember, this was when Storm Shadow was still a Cobra. So again, we have the whole kind of story arc of him. We already had issue 21, and we already had issue number 26 and 27 as far as the relationship. So this is kind of like Snake Eyes kind of bringing Storm Shadow into the fold and trying to like recruit him at the same time. But again, I just love this cover, the big question mark in there. I mean, this type of shit is what got us kids to buy this stuff off the newsstands, and I think it's really important and wonderfully done. Just overall great. And even though this is not a Cobra, I still have to give a special to this. This is my favorite cover, all-time cover of G.I. Joe. I call it the Megadeth cover. So it looks like a Megadeth album. We have a lot. I told there's quite a bit of Cobras. When you combine the IDW run and the Marvel run, there's quite a bit of interesting covers. And again, this is dealing with the whole revelation, the Baroness discovering that this is an imposter. This is like just before the Cobra Civil Wars, the whole power struggle going on, and how Baroness kind of uses this opportunity, knowing that full well that that's not the real Cobra commander, but she's going to take advantage of the situation to assert her claim to power. She sees this as a wonderful opportunity for her, and she cashes in those chips. So the whole power struggle going on, I think, is a nice prequel to what we're going to get in the iconic Cobra Civil War. And then issue number 71 is kind of kickstarting the Cobra Civil War. All right, the next one is IDW issue number 177. I kind of like this. This is kind of dealing with the whole death of Billy and how Revanche is responsible for it. And you have a whole team up of the Baroness, Snake Eyes, because everybody loves Billy. And they're all kind of like joined forces in order to avenge Billy's death. So I kind of like this cover. And right after that, issue number 176 is one of the last few Herb Trimpe covers. Now, Herb Trimpe is such an icon. I send issue number 200 away for grading, but that is most likely the last Herb Trimpe G.I. Joe cover. So this would be kind of like one of the last few, second to last, of Herb Trimpe's involvement, his artwork on G.I. Joe. And this is what diehard fans look for. I mean, if you love G.I. Joe and you grew up on Herb Trimpe, remember Hulk 181? That's Herb Trimpe. So many iconic covers that these modern kiddos are going after and collecting. They're not paying attention. The artists, I mean, they put Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld on a pedestal, but there were the 90s guys. What about the people before them, like the George Perez, the Herb Trimpe, the John Byrne? I mean, that's part of what my channel is all about, to kind of like hold a flag up and, hey, remember these are the OGs that kind of made the way for all of these modern comics rock stars. I mean, the sad thing is, if they were born, their work came at the wrong time. If they were just in the 90s or going forward, they'd be rock stars. But they're often forgotten. And I just want to take a second to acknowledge how important Herb Trimpe, that combination of Herb Trimpe and Larry Hama, is the A-team for me as when it comes to G.I. Joe. The next cover is issue number 130. Again, kind of like that angry Cobra, the vengeful Cobra commander who's going around kicking dogs and just ruthless. And you have a Saw Viper. This is not the same Saw Viper, but still, I guess they put it there. The Heat Viper is there. One figure I really like. I do like this figure a lot. I know ACC covered it, but I like that figure a lot. So issue number 130. The next one will be issue number 58. Now this is the Fred series taking over, shooting Cobra Commander in the back and putting on the new battle suit, and Cobra Commander reborn. Is that a big screwball, I should say, because we find out that it's not Cobra Commander. Cobra Commander wants to retire and take care of Billy. So again, this is another iconic classic cover that leads so much into the story arc down the road. So I really like this. I think this is a good Cobra cover. Alrighty, so the next one we're going to look at is another John Royal cover. And I like this one a lot because it is Zorana, Zartan, and Cobra Commander. This is what John Royal is all about right there. And this just pops and beautifully done. We got 9.0 on this. Now, we feature all of these during our unboxing episodes for PGX and EGX. So what's cool is even non-G.I. Joe fans jump in, add in their 2 cents about, oh, I remember that book, or they get interested. This is kind of like my way to get modern or non-G.I. Joe fans into G.I. Joe. I think that by doing these unboxings and showcasing the wonderful talent, story arc, like this kind of, I like to do this my little part in helping G.I. Joe stay relevant. So this cover is absolutely amazing, and it just shows why John Royal is, since 2015, like I've been a big John Royal. He's a good friend of the channel. I've spoken to him numerous times, and he's just an amazing dude. And speaking of John Royal, this is another John Royal cover, issue number 255, another Destro and Baroness. What I like about this one is that it is Destro version number 2. And the Baroness is, as always, excellently drawn, a nice action pose, really captures the deadliness of the character. And of course, next to her main man, Destro. So this is beautifully done. The next book is actually interesting. This is the first appearance of Dawn Marino, the girl who is the prodigy, who gets Snake Eyes' memories downloaded into her. And this is a nice variant cover featuring the version 1 toy. So this is a very sought after issue. It's one of the expensive IDW issues because it's a first appearance of Dawn Marino. So G.I. Joe issue number 226. The next issue, again, Cobra Commander is back. Issue number 100, a milestone double issue. And again, the red, the background, everything about this just screams an iconic cover. And being that it's a milestone issue, it's significant as well. I think this is the one where he kicks the dog. I'm pretty sure. Everything gets kind of like jumbled up. But at the same time, I'm so glad that this one came out beautifully done, newsstand. So a newsstand 7.0, that's nothing to sneeze at. Remember, newsstands were out there at the 7-Elevens, the gas stations. So getting anything above, I think a 7 is a win when it comes to newsstands. They don't grade as high as direct editions, and that's something I talk about during my unboxing episodes. But I like to target newsstands because that's how mostly I got comics. There was a comic shop later that popped up in my town, but mostly it would be me riding my Stu Thompson Huffy BMX bike about 1.5 miles to the nearest 7-Eleven, picking up a Slurpee, picking up some comics in the comic section. I could close my eyes and remember to this day, it was, in the front of the store, and picking out like 3 or 4 issues and enjoying my Slurpee, riding back with the comics in hand. And again, I'm sure every other kid did, a lot of kids in the 80s did the same exact thing. So for books to come out newsstand and to get grades like this, to me, it's a fucking win. I mean, I'm happy, ecstatic. This is a iconic cover. So I am so glad about that. The next one really spiked up when the whole Snake Eyes origins and then a possible Amazon series that was dedicated to Lady J and kind of like a CSI type of whole deal. this book spiked up to the point where the raw copies were going around $50 to $60. And I'm talking about G.I. Joe issue number 32, the first appearance of Lady J, Ripcord, and Blowtorch Rakondo. This is one of the most ugliest covers, and it's funny because even the modern comic people were specking on this book, and they were pointing out how atrocious this cover is. This is a Frank Springer. He was one and done. They saw this and they realized that there's more talented people. I don't know what other covers. I'm sure Comic Tropes would know more about this person than me, but this is absolutely a shit ass cover. But it's significant in that it's the first appearance of all these key characters, and that it was at one point in 2018 or whenever this, 2020, when the Snake Eyes origin movies came out and that news about the Lady J one, that spiked up. All right, so now we're down to the last issue, and my regulars should know that this is no surprise. One of my top three favorite covers of all time, and that would be G.I. Joe issue number 75. That's right, the Baroness Bondage cover with Serpentor in the height of the Cobra Civil Wars. Everything about this book, from top to bottom, whether it's the cover, the contents inside, the story arc, the characters involved, this book is the zenith, to me, of G.I. Joe. I think this is one of those perfect issues through and through. Now, this is a first print. I have a newsstand that's out to be graded, and I have another, I think a second print. Now, I tell fans that the first print direct edition is usually by this, the old Spider-Man. Now, if it's a black Spider-Man, it's usually a second or third print. And then, of course, the barcode would mean newsstand. So we covered that during other unboxings. So it's good to target either this Spider-Man as a direct edition or a newsstand. But you know what? There's a lot of good value in the second and third printing, especially when it comes to issue number 21. We kind of talked about that in a earlier episode. So anyway, that does it for me. I hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, looking at some iconic Cobra covers. Again, thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of Cobra Convergence number 7. Sending it back to you, HCC 788.